Hello, happy watchers. I hope you're having a day that's as awesome as you are. Today we're taking a look at Diana Pharaoh Francis's Grasping Rainbows short story. It's about 18 pages long in the collection that we're taking a deep dive into in the Weird Wild West, which I'm showing you here. I'll link this to you in the comments below from where I bought it at Amazon in case you're interested in taking a deep dive into it. It was published in 2015. It was Kickstarter. It was a big Kickstarter success, and a lot of people then submitted short stories to get it published, and obviously they got their pick of the litter. And I actually haven't read anything so far that's a little lower than a 6, although everything's been between a 6 and 7, except for one short story, Ruin Creek, which I loved, and I gave an 8 to. So that's pretty good. It's good when you're able to take your pick of hundreds of submissions and then say, okay, let's, you get the chance to, take a look at the best of stuff from this genre. So we're taking a look at the Weird Wild West genre. So the author here, Diana Pharaoh Francis, does not have much in her Wikipedia page, but she does actually have a Wikipedia page, which is unlike most of these. She published her first book, which was called Path of Fate in 2003, and then I'm going to read her bio in this book because it's more detailed than the Wikipedia page it is. Diana Pharaoh Francis writes books of a fantastical, adventurous, and then often romantic nature. Her award-nominated books include the Path series, Horngate Witches series, the Crosspoint Chronicles, and the Diamond City Magic series. Also the Mission Magic series. She's owned by 2 corgis, spends most of her time herding children, like I hear that, and likes rocks, geocaching, knotting up yarn, and has a thing for 1800s England, especially the Victorians. For more about her writing, you can visit www.dianappharaohfrancis.com. That's diana.pfrancis.com. She can also be found on Twitter and at Diana P. Francis. Okay, so that's her bio and a little bit about her. So now we're going to be taking a look at her 17-page short story, which I knocked out last night for the first time, called Grasping Rainbows. And by the way, I love the title of this. And I got the title of it on the last page when there's a rainbow reference that's made, and it's just so cute. And I like how the grasping of the rainbows happens. So I like this title a lot. It was just my favorite title in the collection so far, which is pretty cool. As a reminder, we're doing a deep dive into the Weird West genre, which is a combination of horror, science fiction, or fantasy with an old Western settings and styles and tropes. Since this channel looks at 3 genres: horror, science fiction, and fantasy, and this is 3 genres: science fiction, horror, and fantasy combined with horror. Combined with westerns. It feels on cue and thus a part of the trappings of this. This is the first true fantasy short story that I've read in this collection. We're only about a few left in the collection I've been doing a deep dive into. That was Kickstarter in 2015, and thus I have found this my first true fantasy. Some might have fantasy elements like Ruin Creek, but this is my true proper fantasy that just has fantasy elements, and it feels like a traditional fantasy too. In fact, it doesn't have a lot of Western to it. It might have one Western trope here or there, but it doesn't actually feel much of a Western. It's just like a fantasy. Again, that's on cue, because this we do care about fantasy as a part of this thing, but there's sort of what's happening. So this story, again, is about 18 pages long, and I knocked it out last night in about 42 minutes from this collection. This short story's fantasy trappings include magic, sorcerers, magical healing, monsters that exist that are in humanoid form, sorcerers, magical stones, characters that are immune to magic, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of magic in this world. Our main character protagonist is a female in this village who is not a persona non grata. Is definitely somebody who's not appreciated by her people, and she's an outcast in this society. She's supposed to be having sex with a single man, so that because she can't have children. But she's refusing to allow herself to become what she calls the village whore. So that way she is she's even more of an outcast than her people normally would be, and so forth. And so her life is basically this, and what's going on and the world building that happens is thus the 18 page, about 40 plus minute long read last night that I knocked it out. It was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it. There's a lot of great world building in here, great writing. You can tell that Diana Pharaoh Francis has written. She started in 2003. This is 2015. So she's got 12 years under her belts of lots of novels and short stories and that sort of a thing. It has a Wikipedia page, so she's definitely highly published and respected in her field. So, that's also good too, because she has, now 12 years of experience, and I think you can definitely tell that from this writing. It's definitely well written. It's a lot of fun stuff that's happening in it. This was very dark. And I enjoyed it, which is actually rare because I typically don't like dark things as much as regular stuff. But this is a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of plot that happens in this short story too. The world building's there, but it's not taking priority. And there's not like any elements in the short story that are written as a part of the world building that don't become a key part of the short story later on, which I appreciate too. There's also a Christ-like narrative here too that if you start to look at, you'll be able to see. So take that into, so going into this, because again, my reviews are spoiler free, but go into it with that sort of Christ-like narrative, and then you'll see it by the time we hit the final page. I think you'll see. And then that's it. The ending's fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm giving this sort of a 6+, like a 6.3 or a 6.4 that I'm running down to a 6. It's definitely a strong short story. Now we're doing a deep dive into the Weird West genre because I started watching some stuff on television, and I've been doing a lot of deep dives into it. I've also been reading some comics. I've also been reading some books. I got a book in the queue, The Circus of Dr. Lau, which I haven't read yet, but I'm reading a bunch of short stories. I read one by Robert E. Howard, and then I picked up this collection, take a look and see what we're doing. The first short thing that got this started was a 1960s series that combines spy and westerns in an old West setting with science fiction and steampunk. It's one of the first steampunk elements. It was hugely influential in the steampunk genre, called The Wild Wild West, with 104 15-minute episodes. I knocked it out pretty quickly. It was my binge, and then I moved on to Legend, which is a 12 episode series from UPN in 1995 that also combines science fiction and fantasy. Science fiction with horror. Science fiction with westerns. Sorry about that. I was really excited about Legend. And then The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., which I'd heard good things about but never actually seen, was my next binge in the early 90s. And then I've moved on to the 1935 serial, The Phantom Empire, that stars the singing cowboy Gene Autry himself, the guy who has 5 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was that big a character, and this is his first starring role. So that's pretty fun, too, to go back and watch that. That combines science fiction and fantasy elements with a Western, although in that case it's a modern Western, because there's like radio broadcasts and that sort of a thing, and televisions and that sort of a thing. So it's actually a modern. It's not set in a Western, so it's not a traditional Weird West, but it still has all the Weird West trappings because it's a Western and a science fiction fantasy, although it's more science fiction and that sort of a thing. But it's fun, so I've been doing a deep dive into this genre, and I've definitely been enjoying it. And now we're just a few stories left from this collection being finished, which is nice. And then next I'm going to move on to the collection of horror short stories that was published by Penguin Classics, created by Shirley Jackson, the horror writer. So that's going to be my next that horror project of short stories, who wrote The Lottery, and she's really famous for The Lottery. And so then that's next. After this, in case you care. So there you are. I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read this short story or anything else by Diana Pharaoh Francis? If so, I would be more than happy to engage you with it further in the comments below, whatever your thoughts are, whatever you thought. Maybe you thought this was an 8 out of 10, maybe you thought this was a 6 out of 10, maybe, like me, or maybe you thought it was more of a 4 out of 10, whatever. I'm happy to talk with you further about it, whatever your thoughts are. If you enjoyed this video, hey, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.